Deborah was so much more than my best friend. We met in first grade, went all through school together until our graduation. She was always there for me, to turn a frown to a laugh with just the right word, to share secrets and give wise advice, to be the sister that I never had. She married her high school sweetheart, and I was her bridesmaid. That is how I have always remembered her, in her ivory bridal gown with a chapel-length train. Before she spoke her final vow, she turned to me for just a second, and I will never forget seeing, even behind her veil, her bright eyes and beautiful smile. Sadly, her husband's business prospects forced them to relocate to San Diego, California, more than 3,000 miles away from our hometown of Salem, Massachusetts. We still wrote to each other, of course, but the responsibilities of our lives became more and more pressing. She soon had twin girls. My widowed mother was dying, and besides caring for her, I also became mother to my 2 younger brothers. Our letters became brief notes, and in spite of our best intentions, we drifted apart. 4 years later, it was my turn to marry. It had been 6 months since I had heard from Deborah, a Christmas card. So I sent her a telegram telling her of my upcoming nuptials. She had always vowed to be at my wedding, but the country was going through some very difficult economic times in the year of our Lord 1934, and I knew that it would likely be impossible for her to travel from California. I was to be married in the Hawthorne Hotel. My fiancé had hired a horse and carriage to take me the 5 blocks from my home to the hotel. I was sitting alone in the library on the first floor of the house that my family had lived in for 200 years. My bridesmaid, Rebecca, was upstairs and would soon be down to join me. Before a large mirror, I was concentrating on arranging my hair and applying makeup. I was totally focused on the upcoming event. I sensed the library door slowly and noiselessly swing open. The door acted as a screen, preventing me from seeing anyone who might have been standing behind it. From where I sat, I could not have seen anyone entering the room until he or she had gotten beyond the door itself. I glanced around, half expecting to see Rebecca, my bridesmaid. But there was no one there. Only the wind, I thought. Someone must have left the front door to the house open. My eyes were then drawn to something entering the room. It looked like white fog-like smoke. Fire was my first thought, but I quickly dismissed that. There was no smell of anything burning. There was also a sound, a rippling sound, like little waves washing up on the beach. It advanced into the room, and finally, stopping before me, began to rise up in the air. I held my breath, and I swear my heart stopped beating. What materialized before my eyes was the figure of a tall, graceful woman. She was wearing an ivory-colored bridal gown with a full train. She had entered the room backwards, and what I had first seen was her pale silk train, and the sound that I had heard was the rippling of her silk dress and crinolines. She was fully veiled. Looking down at me, she drew back her veil. It was Deborah. She gazed down at me and reached out and took my hand. She passed something from her palm to mine. It was a $20 gold piece. I still have it today, 40 years later. Suddenly I heard footsteps. Rebecca entered the room. She passed through Deborah as easily as you pass through a wreath of mist or smoke. But Deborah looked to me exactly as though she were there in the room. The shade of her dress, the color of her hair, her jewelry and wedding band as well defined and clear as I am now sitting before you. I made a motion to Rebecca to be seated and be quiet. I did not want to take my eyes off of Deborah. I feared that if I looked away, she would fade, and I wanted to keep calm and see what would happen next. I quietly whispered to Rebecca to ask if she saw anything, but even though her eyes followed the direction of my eyes, she shook her head in bewilderment. For 2 or 3 minutes we were all three frozen, as if ice sculptures. Then Deborah began to rise. As she did so, she slowly began to fade. She grew fainter and vaguer. Her colors grew hazy. I blinked for just a second, and she was gone. I saw again the pattern of the rug that had been hidden by her train, and the objects in the room that had been hidden by her gown. Everything in the room was exactly as it had been, and she was gone. Completely gone. When I returned from my honeymoon in Maine, a telegram was waiting for me. I can't say that I was surprised. I had half been expecting it. It was the first piece of mail I received addressed to my new name. June 30th, 1934. Dear Mrs. Winslow, I regret that I have delayed in informing you that my wife and your good friend, Deborah Kingsley, died in a boating accident on May 30th of this year. She now rests with the angels. Sincerely, Andrew Kingsley.